My name is Chad Gillikin. I'm one of two student assistance counselors here at Ridge High School. I want to introduce a clip here of a panel discussion we had on April 29th called How Safe is Generation Y? We had an expert panel put together by the Bernards Township Board of Ed as well as the local health department and police department in trying to help parents better understand some of the things their kids are going through. I hope you enjoy the following clip.
Ms. Gaffin, what kind of an active role does a parent have in helping to protect and healthily grow their adolescent? Where does one strike a balance between becoming the helicopter parent versus the hands-off parent?
I always encourage parents of teenagers to focus on specific observable behaviors rather than to analyze. I think teenagers are almost impossible to analyze. I always encourage parents identify specific behaviors that you can see and monitor that will tell you that your kids are doing well. And if you see those behaviors, back off, let them assume the responsibility and start trusting them. Examples of behaviors, grades, they're the only quantitative measure we have of adolescent behavior. I would keep in touch with them, how their communication is, what are their friends like, do you know their friends, how secretive they're being, how involved are they in activities or sports or extramurals, things that they've always loved and enjoyed doing. Do you know their friends? Do they bring their friends around? Do you know the parents? Talk to them. I think it really does take a village. I don't think being the helicopter parent helps or works. I think it makes your teenager even more manipulative and even more secretive. I think it's so much more effective to identify those specific behaviors that you need to see for you. And once you see them, back off a little bit. Give them some space to grow and, to kind of fall flat while you're still watching them.
The largest argument I get from kids in my office about pot smoking is, A, it's not addictive. And I tell them that my kids on probation and drug treatment and with their parents grounding them until the end of their high school career can't stop smoking. I argue that it is addictive for those kids. If you wear an ankle bracelet, you spent time in Middlesex Detention Center, you're seeing Lauren Gaffin, or you've already been placed residentially because of pot smoking, and it does happen, there's a problem. You ought to stop, and you can't. They come with websites and lots of good articles and statistics and numbers, and I'm not saying it's the devil pot, because it's not, but it is absolutely illegal, and that's all you need to know, right? It's a good message for your kid, a conservative message. You shouldn't be smoking pot, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol, and you shouldn't be making it easy for them to do so.
I'm going to add one more thing. I went to a conference at Columbia University a couple months ago, and the heading of the conference is Treating Pot Addiction. Why is this still a novel idea? Just to further elaborate on that, there are two main kinds of addiction. There's a physical addiction and there's a psychological addiction. You cannot get physically addicted to pot, but the psychological addiction is just as intense as anything else. A physical addiction takes us 3 to 5 days to treat. You can be physically addicted to any drug, and within 3 to 5 days you are no longer physically addicted. The emotional, the psychological addiction, that's a lifetime chronic disease. So that's really the addiction that I'm after.
Next question here. Speaking of drugs and things that we've certainly talked about here in the town over the last 2 years, we got a question here. What do you think was the most misunderstood part of the random drug testing amongst parents? It says, why do you think that random drug testing is the answer to dealing with the students' use of drugs? Discuss the reality and severity of the problem at RHS and in our community. What do you expect a random drug testing program to do for the numbers of students who are experimenting with drugs and alcohol at Ridge, at William Annan, and certainly in the community here? We have 28,000 or so residents here in the community, and I'd like to certainly put this out here as a community issue, because it is. As we talk here as panelists who either live and or work in this community or in surrounding communities, the hopes of the random drug testing really were not as a panacea, but as a hope to change the culture in our student population. It was not meant to be punitive, invasive, or designed to catch kids using. We have already those methods. We have suspicion-based testing at the schools. Any kid is suspected of being under the influence by any teaching staff member can be sent out for drug testing now. So it is certainly not a we recognize you as using and we need to send you out or suspect you of using. I know lots of folks in the community who spoke up at board meetings took a personal affront to us even considering random drug testing as a cultural deterrent. And you know, I'm not sure that I have a strong argument back for the American Civil Liberties argument. If that's your value system and that's how you believe, I don't have a lot to say about that. I can talk about kids and safety and sacrifices I'm certainly willing to make, and the committee was willing to make, and certainly parts of our board were willing to make. But at this point, you know, random drug testing is something that's been tabled by the Board of Ed, and at some point it may come back up as a possible, not answer by the way, but as a component to help address the cultural changes needed to help our kids, as you're hearing now about the trends of drug use in our schools, make better decisions. It is a deterrent program. Mr. Davis, what is my legal responsibility as a parent if I choose to host a party at my house and teens bring alcohol in or use drugs without me knowing? What if my wife and I are away for the weekend and my kid has people over and someone gets hurt, or if property is damaged? The most important question here, am I liable?
Obviously, there's a lot of parts to this question. From the standpoint of legal responsibility, it's essentially going to follow whether or not you made the home available for that use. You know, the classic case is if you go away on vacation and you leave your teenager at home and they decide to have a party with alcohol that you don't supply, you don't bring in, and you didn't make the house available for that purpose, you can't be held either criminally or civilly responsible. It comes down to what the level of knowledge is. There are parents, as a prosecutor in both this town and Bedminster, there are parents who feel that they can control parties and they will have parties for underage drinking. That is where you're going to get into real problems, both from a criminal and civil standpoint. You may think you're going to control that party. You're going to take keys from kids. You'd rather have them drink in your house. You are criminally responsible. If you supply alcohol to someone under the legal age to drink, either you supply it or you allow your home to be used. Some parents feel that I'll allow them to bring the alcohol, but I'm not going to supply that. You are criminally responsible.